This is Robert Simels giving you the business.
This is Chris Gotti Lorenzo giving you the business with my partner, Don Dinero.
Okay, well, I was just giving it to you raw.
And we have another great guest today. You know what I'm saying? A dear friend, Robert Simels. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming, man.
Thank you for having
me. Man. I appreciate it. I know you're not close from where we shoot at, so I appreciate the journey, the time. The older I get, I'm very big on time. Because, you know, I'm sure you feel the same way. The older we get, the less we have. We know. When you're young, you feel like you're living forever. But now, when you get older, you know there's an end date coming.
You're on the other side of the hill.
Yes. We're rolling down the hill. We're not climbing up the hill anymore. But, yeah, you feel that. So, again, I'm very big on time and everything. So, you know, again, thank you for making the time and
My
everything.
pleasure.
You know, we're going to get into a lot of different talks. You know, we have a lot of history together, and you personally have been through so many different things. And I want to touch on that, bring it right back into the business space and why these things make so much sense. So the first thing, again, just give me you and where you started from, you know, from an attorney. Robert Simels is an attorney. He was a criminal attorney, represented an array of different people, and I will get to each one or the main ones, you know, as we go. And I want to talk attorney business. You know, what's the difference in money from being a prosecutor versus a defense attorney, and why go into this space, you know?
Well, I did start off as a prosecutor, and I did
Okay.
that for 5.5 years. You reach a level of how much money you can make being a prosecutor.
You get your dollars capped.
Your dollars are capped.
We don't like capped dollars around here.
And in addition to that, I mean, you've accomplished what you've accomplished. And there came a point that after 5.5 years, I said, there's more I can accomplish, and there's more money I can bring in. So I left.
Right.
And I then, from 1979 till 2010, was a criminal defense attorney.
Let everyone know how old you are, if you don't mind, so they understand the timeline.
I'll be 75 in a few weeks.
And you look great. Man.
Oh, you do.
Yes, you look great, man. 75. Keep it up.
Well, we're going to keep trying to go as long as we can, right?
That's right.
But I was a prosecutor from 74 to 79, and then from 79 to 2010, I was a defense attorney.
Okay. So go
handling
through some.
mostly criminal defense cases, mostly in the narcotic area,
Right.
mostly in the minority community.
Wow. Right in the wheelhouse. Not the narcotics. Pause. But you understand. Like, so I tell everyone, one of the things I really take pride on for me personally is I said I never sold drugs. Everyone I grew up with sold drugs. And they could have been middle class. They could have had great parents that was doing well, but they all sold drugs, you know? And again, it was just that era. It was that time when you was coming up in those 80s, you know, late 70s, 80s. I mean, that's what everyone did in my neighborhood. I don't know about anyone else's. And, you know, we're all products of our community, but I never sold drugs. I might have did everything else except that. And I wouldn't allow Irv to do it either. Irv tried his hand with somebody. Al Monday, what up, boy? I know you're home. You know,
Listen,
shout out to Al.
I never sold drugs either, but the judge wouldn't buy it.
He didn't believe you.
He didn't believe me. Son of a
But
bitch.
you know what I'm saying? And Al was involved with a lot of, you know, narcotics and things of that nature. Tried to lure Irv in. And I stopped that. I wasn't having my little brother do it. If I'm not doing it, I led by example. I kept so many things from Irv, too, that I did that he doesn't even know about because I never told him. I didn't want him to think. Even now, he's 51, you know what I'm saying, and I'm 54, but I never thought to go back and tell him, hey, this is what, you know, the way you became a DJ, buddy, I tied some people up and went in that house and took the equipment. I never did tell him those stories.
You just did.
I know I just did, but I just thought like, hey, it'll be in the documentary, so he'll see it then.
It's too late now.
Too late now.
Well, I understand because I remember one of my clients, Fat Cat.
Yeah, Lorenzo.
Yes.
Lorenzo Fest. Shout out Fat Cat. I had the pleasure to meet him when I went up to Clinton to see another friend of mine that was inside Turf. You know what I'm saying? Dupree Harris. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Turf. You know what I'm saying? He's a Brooklyn dude, a monster. You know what I mean? Actually was involved with, his case was over jury tampering, which we'll get into also. His case, that's what he was there. And I met him in Clinton because my partner was visiting Lorenzo and I was visiting Turf, so I got to talk to him.
I asked Cat once how he was able to get so many people to work in the mill.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, if they work at McDonald's, they can't afford Nikes. If they work for me, they can buy Nikes every week.
There you go. It was really that simple.
Simple as that.
It was really that simple. You know what's crazy? Because all the workers that I would go, I always had money from doing things that I might have done. I worked since I was 5, but I would employ myself with multiple revenue streams, whether it was legal or illegal, from scams or, robberies or things of that nature, or just being someone's security, because I took care of a lot of the dudes that was selling drugs, and they would ask me to come with them, and I never thought about the consequences. I never thought about what might it be for, and then once I did it, they give me some money for being there and making sure everything was good. And that was really my upcoming as a young adolescent kid up and through to manhood, and that was just a different, I just wasn't thinking, if you understand. Like now I'm so conscious and aware of everything I do. I was, what do they say? God protects children and fools.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't a baby. So, I was just a fool. So at the end of the day, that's how I looked at it. But I would go by the block with all of the guys that was out there, because back then they'd be on the block selling hand to hand or whatever. Like the game is so different now. And I would say exactly what the Cat told you about. I said, man, y'all look at y'all. Y'all out here every day and you got nothing. I said, if you worked at McDonald's, you respect it. You have something because you respect the money you made because you worked for it so hard. You think it's easy, but it's not easy what you're doing out here. I said, you running from different motherfuckers that's trying to rob you. You running from the police. It's so much things going on. Your man might be setting you up. And there's so many things going on. It was like, and I was like, a lot of times I would just tell them, come on, get in the car. No one had cars back then. No one had things, you know what I mean? It was very different than today.
And they had nothing for a rainy day.
Nothing for a rainy day. And you would know more than anyone because you're the attorney that once they got in trouble, they were like, I don't have the money for the retainer.
I was fortunate enough that most of the people who came to me were the alleged
The bosses.
to be the heads.
The bosses.
But everybody else had no money.
I tell everyone, don't call me a boss. I'm a leader. But at the end of the day, bosses get indicted. Bosses go to jail. I'm not the boss.
All the street people had no money.
Yes, I understand.
And couldn't afford an attorney. And would
at
have
your
to,
level.
Or any level. And they would have to rely upon the government attorneys, public defenders.
Yeah.
And then they became frustrated. And it was a domino effect because if you got a government attorney, they would likely tell you to cooperate, or they would tell you to plead guilty, and you get ticked off of the leader and say, well, I'll cooperate against him. He's not helping me.
If I had to ask you a question about how many, because you was on both sides as a criminal and a defense attorney, so how many cases are won because of cooperation?
Today, all cases are won because of cooperation.
Did y'all hear that? Let's say that again.
That's
like
100.
All cases are won from cooperation. And this is, again, what I try to explain. If people just was able to hold their self, they could do a lot better in the system.
No matter how many times we're told on TV, in a movie, or whatever it may be, don't give up your Fifth Amendment rights. Don't talk to the cops when they arrest you. Yeah. They all do. Everybody thinks they can talk their way out.
And they can't.
And they can't. And ultimately, if they cooperate, they hurt everybody else.
Wow.
But all cases are won that way. Agents are lazy, and they have become more lazier over the course of time.
Technology helps them.
Technology. They love making cases against pedophiles because all they have to do is
Tech.
get the chat rooms and
Get their computer.
Get the computer, and they got a case.
Get their IP address, and it's over.
And today in the federal prisons, about 35% of all the inmates are pedophiles.
Wow. That's because that's the easiest
case.
Man, see, that's a whole new insight on something, man.
But that's a
crazy.
business, though. Because
but 35% of all inmates is pedophile cases because how easy it is for conviction is basically what he's saying.
Yeah, because then it's okay. But where's the money play here?
Well, money's in jail.
Exactly. So they're locking them up, and they're saying, look, it's a lot easier to have. Someone's having a meeting and say, look, you know something? This way to get it's a lot easier. You're not going to...
Just think, they give you 3 hots in the cot, you get locked up.
And
most people don't have that. Dental,
the money,
medical, but go ahead.
The money is just what the issue is. You put the pedophiles in jail, then you create programs, the Bureau of Prisons creates programs to treat them. They don't treat them, but they give them money. Millions and millions of dollars.
But those programs need funding.
That's
right?
What they,
yeah, it's all. That's they're creating some type of funding. How do we extract more money from the taxpayer or whoever's paying this?
And that's in addition to the Federal Bureau of Prisons budget. These additional programs. So they created in Seagullville, Texas, a special place for pedophiles, but they don't get any better training or any. They don't know how to deal with.
How do they pick the territory they put it in? Do you know that? Like, what's the reason they picked there? There has to be. There probably is a lot of
I'm sure
money for the influence. Like, bring it over here because they know the money.
I'm pretty
that's going to be
sure
generated.
someo's bidding on the next pedophile.
Yeah, that's
prison
what I
to
mean.
be built
Bidding
right now,
or paying
as
somebody.
we're having this interview. Someone's bidding
or paying someone.
Bring it to my state.
Yeah,
they create separate buildings. They build buildings.
Yeah.
They hire additional people to theoretically teach them how not to be a pedophile.
So that's so that creates jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really, the pedophiles only just want to get out and be pedophiles
again. That's all they want. Okay. What's the sentence for a pedophile?
It can be anything from 5 years to 50 years.
Oh, it could go deep. They could go long. Okay.
I mean, you look at the guy from Subway.
Yeah.
He got, I think, 20 years or so.
Yeah. Jared, you're talking about.
Jared.
Yeah. Good.
That's crazy.
All these damn pedophiles, the longer the better.
And that's a money issue. You know, a guy like him goes into jail when he gets extorted, and the money goes round and round.
Well, I mean, let's
once
see,
he gets inside,
but also
he'll be in protective
also
custody.
let's say the blow the Subway brand had to take because of that.
Yes.
And now sit and see. Imagine the head of the face of your brand. Imagine they find out the Flow girl from Progressive. Hey, is doing some swagara wagara shit, right? Woo, but think about the let's
how
do
come
the
you
money
don't see
trail.
women pedophiles? Do you see that? Do you see women that are pedophiles? No, I don't never see that.
That are prosecuted? No.
That are prosecuted or even found out.
Right.
If they're really doing it, it would seep through the cracks at some point, right? I believe in those kind of things.
But the money trail was
face.
incredible. Where Subway took a hit, everyone took a hit, especially him, and then obviously the people he was doing these things to the younger people.
Sure, and it created a new niche for other companies to come in and take their place. Really.
Yes.
Jersey Mike's or
exactly. I mean, switching the guy from is it Pizza Hut or Papa John's?
Papa John's.
With his racist remarks or whatever. Now Shaq owns the company.
Over.
Right.
Clean as a whistle. Shout out Shaq, man.
Say that business
funniest guy on TV.
Let's talk about the business
all the commercials. Unreal.
The LA Clippers.
Yeah, oh man.
Right? No, they took his franchise from him, for whatever opportunity for this other owner to come in. So even though, those are the business plays whether it's pornography or child abuse, or look at the guy 2 days ago, the hedge fund guy or whatever from Bank of America who throws the shake at this
Merrill Lynch.
From Merrill Lynch throws the shake at the girl and he's done for life.
Yeah.
right? These are situations today that your actions are going to cost you a lot of money. Bottom line.
Well, shit happens.
Exactly.
I know you represented someone that I wanted to get into again, and what was that experience like with, I know most people seen Goodfellas. That's what the movie, right?
Yes.
It was Goodfellas. The character in Goodfellas that the movie's technically about is Henry Hill. And you had represented Henry Hill.
I did represent
How did that
Henry.
come about, and what was that like with him?
So on Memorial Day weekend in 1980, I got a call from a federal judge. He asked me to go over to the federal courthouse and witness somebody signing an agreement with the feds.
Mm.
And
This is when you get him. This is the first day.
First day I'm ever meeting him. I walk over there. I meet him. I meet the prosecutors. I say, "What's this about?" The prosecutors say, "Oh, he just has to sign a cooperation agreement and enter the witness protection program." I say, "All right, let me speak to him." I go speak to him. I say, "Tell me why they have you here and what this is all about." And he tells me it's all about the Latonza robbery, $6
The
million.
Latonza heist.
The heist at Kennedy Airport, $6 million.
Nice.
Which back in those days was a lot of money.
Yeah.
The biggest robbery ever.
Hey, I just want to let you know, it's a little change today, too.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the movie, you
Sure.
see
One of my favorite movies.
how important that
Goodfellas, yeah.
robbery is in the scheme of things. And I say to him, he's facing life sentences in Nassau County, as you see in the movie when the helicopters come at the end.
Yeah.
And I say, all right, we're going to take a chance. And I go back to the feds and to the state prosecutors, and I say, he's not going to cooperate unless you give him a walk. And meaning no jail time, no nothing, dismiss the cases. And they were so desperate to solve Latonza that they agreed.
Wow.
So
that began my relationship with Henry.
I mean, what happened when you went back and told him, hey, by the way, listen, I sit down right here. What happened when you went back and told him, hey, it worked?
You know, Henry, like he's portrayed in the movie, thought this is the way things work.
Right.
I mean, he's just surprised I didn't have to tip them to get the
Wow,
outcome.
Okay.
So, and then we walk away, and then Nassau County tried to break the agreement, but I got it enforced. But then Henry had no way to pay me. So I said, how about if we sell your life story?
Nice.
And so
that's how the movie came about?
I went and started to try
Shop
to sell
around?
the story.
No, that's great. Again, one of my favorite movies, Goodfellas. With Robert Dinero, Joe Pesci. There's so many lines. It's like classic lines in there, like "No More Shine Box." I always tell people that's, the older generation like myself or Dinero, in hip hop. If I took all of those execs, right? This is very serious, like for the younger generation to understand. If I took those execs, they all hold you accountable based on how they was treated at coming up. So if they was treated bad, more than likely they all were treated bad or unfairly. They pass it on. And that's why I don't want to mention the names of these execs, but I mean, I could name them off easy. They give these younger people hard times. And I might have came up hard, but I don't believe in that system. That's that no more shine box, right? That's why that line in particular in that movie was very impactful for me because it relates to me personally on that level. And it's like no more shine box, meaning I'll give the young guys a chance or an opportunity, whether they really earned it yet or not, but I'm going to give them their defined line of what I need. It's not going to be a cakewalk is what I'm trying to say, but the opportunity's there. I'm not going to treat them bad. I'm going to treat them fairly, give them the information that they need. These guys, think of Puffy when he was on Making the Band.
Yeah.
Walk to Junior's and get me a cheesecake.
Yeah.
That's the executive
They was okay
mindset.
with it until they realized where Junior.
When they realized how far the walk was, exactly, right? Again, Puffy, no disrespect. He came up through the worst of it. You know what I mean? Andre Harrell groomed him and everything, but Andre Harrell, God bless, passed. But these execs was very rough guys to work for, and then same. So Puffy became very rough. But look at all the success he has, right? I'm not knocking the result. I'm just saying you don't have to always kill the guy to help make him tougher or better or what in your mindset.
I mean, but
it
to
worked
this
for
day,
them.
to this day, we remember that when he said that, right? I don't
Yeah.
know what producer agreed. I mean, when you go behind the scenes, someone had to all come together and say, "This is what we're gonna shoot." But we still, to this day, remember that because that was like, wow.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Well, I think that, as I recall the story, Pesci had that said to him when he was a young kid
Yeah,
by some of the mobsters.
some of the wise guys,
And
the
so
good fellas.
when he grew up and they were doing the movie, he said to Scorsese, "This is a great line we could incorporate.
Yeah,
This is the way they treated me." And
Yeah.
I've never forgotten it.
great,
Same thing.
great. I didn't know that, but look, he felt it too. Again, to me, is one of the most great, one of the best lines in that movie. But that's so you got in him again. Congrats with that. That's a great accomplishment. In your profession, I know a lot of when you was being a defense attorney, they wouldn't have dealt with someone cooperating. A lot of attorneys in that space, especially because most of your clients was basically you, like you said, from narcotics, inner city or
Right.
whatever. And if you started working with people that was cooperating, maybe because it was an Italian versus that, but when you work with cooperate, I know it would always cause those attorneys problems getting another client. But that's why it didn't have that effect.
It did have that effect.
Okay.
Because the Italians, as a whole,
Yes.
refused to ever hire me.
Right.
And it led to only people of color coming to me.
Yeah. That's what I said. That effect, because the Italians, it would have probably have that, but maybe we didn't understand or know that it not the same, not the same. So
It
they
wasn't
didn't know.
impacting them,
Right.
anybody
That's what
of color.
mean.
I mean, it was only impacting the Italians.
Italians.
And they were...
My attorney is Shargell. I know you know Gerald Shargell, best attorney that I've ever, had engaged time with. The judge even called him, was quoting him in the courtroom. He was like, if Shargell says that's what it is. And the defense was going crazy, like, this isn't right. But Shargell made himself with John Gotti, I believe, is what really made him. Bruce Cutler was John Gotti's attorney, but Shargell was his attorney, and then the judge threw Shargell off, if I'm not mistaken.
He threw Bruce off, and he
threw Shargell.
Cutler and Shargell.
Yeah, and then again that made Shargell's probably stock rise even more, whether they understood it or not. I know my brother ran a poker game in the city, and this is a true story. The feds come in to raid the poker game, which is not typical with the detectives, so it was both. And then my brother-in-law was leaving at the time. So he sees them coming in to the game to raid the game. He calls me frantically, Chris, they're going in the game. Yo. I said, okay, no problem. I don't know what to do. I call Shargell. It's like 1:30 in the morning. He picks up. I get him. I go pick him up from his house. He said, come and get me. Let's go. And I walk him in there. Irv is handcuffed in the room, and they're fucking breaking everything up, fucking all this shit up. And Shargell walks into the room, and they was in shock. Irv told me this, like, how the fuck is his attorney here already? They knew who Shargell was, the whole thing. When they picked me up out of the jail, and the police was like, how could you afford Shargell? Like, they knew who Shargell was, and right. I'm pretty sure it came from that, from John Gotti being let off for that.
Yeah,
the reputation they built.
Yeah. And again, so it's going right from there. Talk about in your day, what's your retainer? What was your retainer for your cases? So, because I know that's an issue too. Like you said, who could afford it? And we didn't get it finished that out, but who could afford it? So what was your retainer that they could,
Back in the early 80s, we generally try to get between $150,000 to $300,000.
Retainer.
Back then.
In the early 80s.
Sweetie.
How about when in the 2000s, like in that time frame, where was you?
Well, you get up more between 500,000 and 750,000.
Yeah, nice. Again, it's crazy because that.
That's a lot of guacamole.
Well, the funny thing was
And chips.
that in my first big case, the guy paid me $250,000 back in 1984, and he was acquitted of running a continuing criminal enterprise, a Kingpin case.
Sure.
First time that had ever happened, somebody walked away.
It's a federal case?
Yes. Somebody walked away.
Very
first
important
time.
when you understand that he beat the feds. Let's give him a hand of applause for that, man. That's what, a 2 percentile,
Right. His name was Payton, Donald Payton.
Okay.
Fat Payton. Anyway, and then I said, I'm going to get a lot of business. But
Sure.
then I wasn't getting any business.
Mm.
And I ran into somebody and I said, why am I not getting business out of Harlem and any other places? They said, well, he told us that he paid you $1 million. I said, but he didn't. They said, well, that's the reason we haven't been coming, because we don't have that kind of money.
Wow. You've represented someone that I know is a dear friend that I do want to go on and put this on record because you won his case also, and that's TommyMickens.
Well, Tommy, we didn't win the case completely.
Okay, but just for everyone out there, TommyMickens was known as Tony Montana. Tony Montana is the first person ever seen with Bentleys with TVs in the headrest. He used to have helicopters. He owned the whole blocks. He was buying up all the blocks in Queens and putting Tony Montana Supermarket, Tony Montana Dry Cleaners, Tony Montana Realty, everything Tony Montana.
That's
And
true.
this is what, in the
Laurel-
80s?
in Laurelton.
In Laurelton. And Hollis. He had it in
Yeah,
Hollis too. And but Laurelton mainly. And again, this guy, what the case that I'm talking about was the teeth.
That's
And so I'm gonna let you tell that story there.
So they charged Tommy with drug counts, and tax counts
Yes.
because he had acquired a Rolls, a Bentley, and other substantial cars.
Sure.
And he had acquired a boat, large boat, a home in Dix Hills. And so he was really, and we had Montana, everything.
Everything Montana.
So the feds arrested him. And one of the things Tommy did with his money was to have emeralds and diamonds and rubies embedded in his teeth.
What year was this?
This is in 1984, 85.
You hear this?
Wow.
This is way before the young generation with all the fronts and everything. This is, back then, if you had a gold tooth,
Yeah, that was the...
you was like, oh, he got a gold tooth.
Right.
No, Tommy had everything diamond out.
Front and back.
Ruby, front and back, everywhere.
So
Shout out Tommy, man.
we were able to show during the trial that the person that the undercover claimed was Tommy selling him drugs was not Tommy. We actually produced the person in the courtroom who actually sold the drugs.
Right.
But beyond that, I said to the cop on the stand, how close did you get to him? He said, I was 6 inches away. Was the light good? He said, yes. I said, did you speak to him? Yes, for a long time. I said, did you happen to notice anything distinctive about him? He said, no. I said, well, for example, did he have any marks on his teeth? No, his teeth were pearly white. I say, okay.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
So we let it go at that.
Gotcha. Yahtzee.
And we brought in Tommy's dentist with the dental records to show when they had been embedded in his teeth.
Yeah.
So he was acquitted of those narcotic charges.
Sure.
He was convicted of tax charges.
Yes.
And the judge was so upset that he walked away from the narcotics that he gave him 20 years on the tax.
Tax. Yeah. Yeah. They did him dirty. Wow. But he's home, so that's the main thing.
That's true.
Yeah, great story. Again, when he told me, he said the dental, because of all his fronts, is how he beat that side. You know, he got great stories too. I'll probably put him up here too and get him on here because he's got great stories too. With, you know, he was in that era of Supreme, Lorenzo, Fat Cat, like all of that era in Queens. He was right in the thick of it, but people didn't talk. He wasn't as, let's say, loud as them. Didn't mean he wasn't making as much money or more as they were, right? But he was making a ton of money and he was quieter about it.
That's true.
Yeah, he was.
There wasn't
just
as much violence around
his
Tommy
stuff. Yeah. But you know, let's get further into now. So we're going right up the timeline, right? So let's get further into when you get next to Supreme. Let's say.
Well, I meet Supreme right after I started representing Fat Cat, and the feds had just indicted Supreme in 1988.
Yeah.
And that was because his state case that he had had from 1985 had been thrown out. The feds picked it up, indicted him not only for what had been thrown out, but now charged him with being a kingpin. Mandatory life in jail. So
that kingpin charge is not to be played with.
Right. First thing Kenny said to me was, "I'm not Fat Cat and I don't have his money."
First thing.
So, and that was the way Kenny was.
Let that sink in.
But Kenny was that way, however, for the next 20 years of our relationship. Always playing it down as to whether he had any money.
Well, I'm going to sit here. You're talking about in the 80s, though.
Yes.
I didn't know Kenny in the 80s. I didn't know Supreme in the 80s. I knew of him. I didn't know him. Right. I said I'm from Hollis. All I did was fight dudes from the South Side. So, of course, the king of South Side, which was Supreme, I didn't want to deal with him because he was very strong, you know, and his team was very strong. So I would go to, like, clubs like the Encore, Fantasia, you know, which is in South Side, Q Club. And when I found out he's inside there, I would leave. Me and my dudes would leave because we didn't want to have to get into it right there with them. You know, you pick and choose the battles, you know what I'm saying? Everyone else from Southside was getting it. But I didn't want the problem with Supreme problem. That's crazy, right? It was like, and then we ended up becoming so close and so friendly. But in the beginning, in the 80s, I didn't know him. We would run into each other in the clubs, or I would know he's there, and I'm like, come on, let's get out of here before we kill these, like someone's dies in here. So.
The perception of McGriff, Kenny, and what he really is like, two different things.
Yes, absolutely. You know, when you first meet him, the first thing for me, I first meet this guy, his legend is so big. It's only two people in my life that I ever felt this way with. Right. And that's him and Jay Prince. But when I first meet both of them, they're not big guys. You know, when you hear the stories and everything, and you think this guy's going to come out as a giant. But really, this is only his image that's a giant. He's not a big dude. Like, he wasn't a big dude. I'm looking at him. Same with Jay Prince. It was like when I first meet him, I got to go to Houston, and it was like, this is what this is all about. But Supreme was on a different time. He wanted Herb to make a movie.
Right.
You know, it's just business. He just wanted to make a movie. And he had an idea for a book he read while he was locked up, which was Crime Partners. But he's still out at the time you're talking. So this comes after
well, he
that.
was in. He
overturns the case. He overturned that case.
Right. Mm-hmm. He got out. The federal government arrested him. He was in again.
Right.
So, for whatever reasons, the feds at that point, I had won several cases in a row, were fearful of me and what might happen at trial. So they offered him a deal for 12 years. But I got put into the agreement that the time that he had spent in the state would count towards this time.
Right.
And it was an old law case, meaning he only had to do a third or two-thirds
of the time.
As it turned out, he got out after 4 years. which drove them crazy that he was back out on the street
Right.
so quickly.
Wow.
I'm only laughing because the lawyers, I mean, with the right attorneys, there's nothing that can't get done with the right attorneys. And that's, again, here he's thinking he's got 12. He gets out at 4, and he's going, they're pissed off not realizing they made the mistake.
They made the mistake.
They're the ones that sentenced the guidelines to it. Their attorneys are not the best or the brightest, and that's what they probably looked at. But,
They never look at themselves that way.
yeah, but they know you didn't draw it up, they did.
Right.
They have all the power at that point.
They have all the power.
Yeah.
They're just not maybe as smart as some of the better defense attorneys.
Yeah.
And so...
Fortunately
for some of us.
So Kenny got out, and
Dummies.
I didn't actually see him again until about 2002.
Yeah, that's the gun case, right?
And he had a New York State gun case
Yep.
for carrying allegedly a .40 caliber weapon up in Harlem.
Yeah, Glock.
And
I'm the reason he went there to you. So just like when he got the case, he was talking to attorneys with me. I said, what are you talking about? Why aren't you using Simels? You got the relationship, just go. And that's what made him say, you're right. And he was like, I'm going to see Simels.
so then I represented him on that. And then he got a case out of Maryland with a gun for being at a firing range with a gun.
As a felon.
And even though it wasn't his weapon.
As a felon, you can't do that.
As a felon, you can't do that. And then he had the big case, the RICO case, which I did not represent him on.
Yeah. And that's tied into all types of different things that I don't want to get into on here. If I did that interview, it would only be with one person, Supreme. I wouldn't do that with no one else. But okay, so now we're right up to there, and then from there we get into, again, I want to talk real quickly about some of the things again, because you as a defense attorney, you're no longer a defense attorney.
Right, I'm not.
Okay, so I want to get into what happened, why you're not, and that leads right into this next era that we're going into.
As it turns out, a friend of McGriff's went to him and said to him, who should I recommend to this fellow from Guyana who has a drug case?
Right.
Kenny recommended me. And I go to see the guy, and I get hired. And he was charged with having sold drugs from Guyana to the United States. And the government had kidnapped him and brought him back to the United States.
Wow.
So
serious.
It was serious. And nobody seemed to be too concerned about the fact that our government had participated in this kidnapping in another country.
Right. Out of their jurisdiction.
Out of their jurisdiction. Wow. So that was a scam in and of itself. But they have him back here. And he is a hot political item.
In Guyana.
In Guyana. And Guyana sits right next to Venezuela. So the United States was very concerned about Chavez, who was the leader of Venezuela at the time. And they wanted my client to help them against, to get the Guyana government to do something with Chavez.
Wow.
So it became a political issue. And I said, good, dismiss the charges against him. He'll go back and he'll tell you what's going on. But they wouldn't do that.
Right.
So in the end, the government sent one of my client's friends to me who said, I can help you find the witnesses or people who know things about the witnesses. As a defense attorney, I want to know that.
Right.
To be an aggressive defense attorney, to help your client is what I'm there for.
You're there to represent your client overzealously.
Right.
And that is exactly what you're doing. That's the right word, right? Overzealously.
That's right. So, and I thought I knew what that definition was. Earlier in my career, a fellow named Brooks Davis, Sickles, they called him, had a case and I represented him on. And they had, the government had accused me of tampering with a witness there. And we litigated it. It was not a criminal case. We litigated the issue of a sanction, an ethical sanction against me. And we went up to the Court of Appeals in the federal system. And they said, no, he's just being zealous. That's what he's supposed to do, to go interview the witnesses. They don't belong to the government. They belong to everybody.
Right.
Now, fast forward to 2009, I do the same thing. The guy says to me, hey, I can bring the girlfriend of one of the witnesses in, but she wants money. I said, tell her whatever you got to tell her. Just tell her to come in.
Right.
Well, she may want $5,000. I said, tell her $10,000. I don't care really what you tell her.
Just get her here.
Just get her here. Meantime, I tell my office, write up a check for $40, prepare a subpoena, and when she comes in, I'm going to give her the check for $40 and the subpoena, and that's it.
Got him.
Gangsta.
Yeah.
But she didn't show up that day.
Right.
Instead, a guy showed up and searched my office, took my computers, took everything in the office, all my files, charged me with tampering with a witness.
Wow.
And bribery with respect to the woman who I was going to give a $40 check to. In the end, I was prosecuted and convicted, primarily based upon the things that the informant said that I authorized him to do, which were to pay people money to come to my office, that he said that I wanted him to be a witness, which I never did, but we told him whatever we wanted to tell him,
Sure, to get it.
just to get him to help us. They made a big deal out of the fact that I had represented drug dealers my whole career, told the jury, what kind of guy is this who associates with killers?
Wow.
And one of the people I was interacting with had a Yahoo account, Silent Assassin at Yahoo. And the government
Can I get in touch with you?
and the government attorneys during summation said, look at who he associates with.
Yeah.
Silent assassins. This one, that one. And, you know, juries are overwhelmed by this shit.
Sure.
And
You know, that reminds me of something in my case. They told me they read all of we had SkyTel pages then, so they confiscated all those messages on SkyTel. And again, they only could capture X amount of characters, right? SkyTel didn't save the entire, so they would get maybe the first half a paragraph of everything we ever said. But one of them was about go get Cristal. Really was Crystal, my daughter. It wasn't Cristal. It wasn't spelled like Cristal. It was spelled Crystal, like her name. And go get the 500, which was the Mercedes-Benz, and pick up Cristal. And they think we're partying because it happened to fall on a date that things happen. And they think we're celebrating something that happened and transpired on this date. And I'm like, I told Shagel, like, what are they talking about? That's my daughter and that's the Benz. You know, even there was so many texts from Supreme, yo, let me get the 500. He's talking about the car. You know what I'm saying? He was talking about getting the Benz, and we was like, they don't understand our language. They don't understand, like, to me, that's a cultural thing. So, and again, to ask jurors to understand is even harder because that's the tough part. Those 12 that you're facing, man, it gets dangerous over there with them, but they don't understand the silent assassin. That could mean so many things, and so, you know, silent assassin could be Curry. Right?
Yeah, it could be a basketball player.
Yeah.
That could be somebody's Instagram
That's
right now.
Instagram's name, Silent Assassin. Like, that's the culture that we are in that they don't know. And that is a big divide.
you know, I used back in a couple of cases back during that time a professor who was a professor of ethnography, which is the study of the inner city
Culture.
and the language of the inner city.
Sure.
And he came and testified as to what the words meant that my clients were saying that the government interpreted as being awful words and criminal words.
It's crazy that there's a professor for that. Wow. No, seriously, like
Terry Williams.
And then I'm just a little sarcastic, and then right away my mind says what gives him the right or authority to be the professor in that, to really be able to translate this culture in the language that we speak, because most of this culture, if you didn't know or anyone didn't know, it started inside. So that language that we speak really was it was inherited from someone that was inside jail, right? And then they create this culture and it comes outside, and maybe we have a little tweaks on it, but 99% of what we're talking about in hip hop comes from inside.
Right.
And that, when I hear what was it again? What's his name?
Well, coming.
He's an ethnographer.
No. The email. What was it again? The silent assassin
at Yahoo.
At Yahoo. The silent assassin is strictly a hip hop to me. I don't know who it is. I don't know who he's talking about, but he's obviously influenced by our culture. You know, Murder Inc., we used to have business cards. I was the underboss. Now, am I the underboss? No, I'm just second in command. Irv is the fucking boss. My Dex Diamond was the lieutenant, but he was the marketing, the street team. It was marketing, but we use our culture, or even gang, which is in our culture, but we did take a lot of stuff from mafia.
A lot of mafia undertones.
We have a lot of mafia undertones.
It was all metaphors, and then it was kind of
giving them the business. Yeah. Here, we're doing it again, giving them the business. That's double meaning. If I was an Italian wise guy, giving them the business, you fucking somebody up. So when people come on, I give you good and bad, right? If I want to, that's my choice. But I'm giving you the business. I'm teaching you how to do business, or this business, what it means. And so we took it in, and we have the logo. It has the dude in the fedora. Yeah. Again, it's part of the culture. It's part of the culture. And then when I hear that, and then when you mention this professor, that's very interesting to me, because I'm curious to see, did he study in Compton? Did he study, where did he learn his culture from, right? Where did he get the understanding of it?
Well, he was a sociologist, and then he branched off into this particular area. Kenneth Clark, a very famous person in that field, and Margaret Mead had tutored him to go into this area.
Is he black?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Very, very good.
Thought he was Puerto Rican.
No, and I mean, he even got to the basics of a witness that said, "I know Payton," and he explained to the jury, when a black person says, "I know," they don't necessarily mean that they have a relationship. They may know of him.
Sure.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that you know them.
I absolutely live that. I'm telling you, absolutely.
So breaking that down for the jury was very important. We went through the wiretap of all the conversations that the government said were bad, and he explained what everything meant.
Yeah.
And he even, one witness, one person on the tape recording was a con person. And he explained how he could tell from the language, or that she was engaged in coke talk because of how her language changes occurred, how quickly she was speaking, or the kinds of things she was saying.
So many things you could pick up on when you understand culture. You know, we was talking off air about how they was worried about squeegee guys, and I said, that's not it. Squeegee guys, if you could lower yourself from a mindset, a mental set, a mental standpoint, to be out there to work, because you're literally working, and each car comes by, you're trying to make $1, whatever it is. That's not easy. No. That is super hard work. When I think of someone doing robberies, that's easy. It's just go get your gun, the mask, and run in that damn store. It's not no thought inside of it. That squeegee guy is not going to turn into the killer unless something like anything's possible, but I would bet against it every time.
Because, part of the problem in policing is they never change their thinking.
Yeah.
So that they still have on TV guys like Bill Bratton talking about what should be done. His thinking is thinking that was not good 25 years ago.
It ain't good
certainly
today.
Good today.
That's right. You hear that, Eric? I told you we talk about
Well,
stop
you know,
and frisk too.
a lot of the policing has been mixed with politics, and once that happens, then it's not necessarily always, you know what I'm saying? They're selling something. There's a business and
it's politics.
hey, when you say the stop and frisk, I'm just saying, okay, that's gonna put a lot of people in jail. Who's that benefiting? Like, where's the, you know, from a political standpoint, you could start saying, hey, I'm cleaning up the streets. Let's look at the plate to the left or to the right. I'm cleaning up the streets. But then what you're really doing is you're really putting a lot of people in those neighborhoods that they're policing up can't afford bail. If they do, they're putting a strain on their income. So there's a lot on that end.
How about if I said, see, I'm going to cut you off in a second and say, how about I said, if they get caught with something illegal, they fucked up, go to jail.
Right.
I'm talking about the ones that are getting caught with nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
And released but the stop and frisk,
But
the
they still
harassment,
get
you know, when they went in, see, to me, I'm on that side of it, not the criminal side. And that's why when I say I'm against stop and frisk, people may look at me like, oh, you want the criminals? No.
Oh.
But there has to be a different effect, because once you affect a kid that is not from that element, and they have to deal with a cop that is treating them like they're from that element, you'll understand what that is. Like, if you ever felt it. I felt that. I was beat up before by cops. Harassed times when I'm an adolescent, you know.
I mean, to this
It's
day.
the same mentality that has led to so many of these killings in the last 2 years.
I agree.
Right? These 3 white guys in Georgia who see a black guy.
That fear.
Right?
That fear. It's fair, and that's what they need to get educated on. They need to get educated. Again, these cops, they have a hard job, and I don't want to get off the topic. So but we went through this. They have an extremely hard job. Like I said, to go into these neighborhoods and figure out these communities is what they need to do, more so than becoming a cop. They should have to do an internship in Brownsville first. Once they get hired, right, and go do an internship, learn the community, learn the kids that are there every day. Talk to them, speak to them. Don't be afraid of them, you know, and that'll get you into a different situation. And I've seen communities that it works in. Again, I always use Dykeman because I do Dykeman basketball. Shout out Ken Stevens. But I do Dykeman basketball. In that community, those cops talk to the kids. Hey, Jose, don't do that over here. So it's like they understand the circumstances, the community. They speak to them. And most of the cops are Latin, and that area is Dominican, and they speak to each other. And to me, that is what policing needs more of. And that will stop a lot of the senseless things that go on inside of the police department. But again, I don't want to defer off into this. I want to get back into more of what there's still more story that we want to get into.
Yes, definitely.
You know, so there's so you went to jail. How much time did you do? For tampering. And you got convicted for
attempted tampering with a witness.
The witness in that case with the guy with
the Guyanese. So what I'm saying is, what was your official, like when you got charged and sentenced, what was the crime that it was for?
I was convicted of attempted tampering.
Attempted. So they lowered it to attempted.
Right, and conspiracy to witness tampering.
Of course, if you attempted it, it's conspiracy. Conspiracy attaches to any charge.
Right.
And it's the worst. It's the worst thing ever in the system.
So they charged myself and my young associate in my office, a lawyer in my office. Ultimately, the judge threw out the charges against her. So I was saying
it was just you.
Who I could conspire with if she didn't do anything wrong. Couldn't really conspire with her.
Sure.
But nonetheless, he sentenced me to 14 years.
Wow. Do you think he was making an example because you represent drug dealers?
Yes.
And because of your clientele?
Yes.
Wow. He sent a message.
He sent a message, and he said during the sentencing, 60 attorneys from around the country, very noted people, all wrote to him in advance of my sentencing saying, what I was saying to this guy is what we all say. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, we lie to witnesses.
Right.
To try to help whichever side we're on. You know, prosecutors lie all the time to people to try to convince them to cooperate.
Caught the feds line. They said, we're not bringing that in as evidence.
Right.
It's like, damn.
And defense attorneys lied to try to get people to help them as well.
Right.
So when he read, he made a comment that I've received these letters, and they all say you did nothing wrong, but I'm going to show them that that's not so.
Right.
And he gave me a 14-year sentence. I did 9 3/4 of it.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm so happy to see you back home. That's why when I reached out, and again, we've been talking since we was talking while you was inside
That's
also.
right.
And it's just a pleasure to see you back here.
My pleasure, really.
Yeah, definitely. We'll figure some more stuff, like some good business things to do, because you started you can't practice the law because you lost your bar, right? You're disbarred, so you're not a lawyer legally, but you have a wealth of knowledge, information, and you have a new company. What's that?
It's called LegalHelp.us.
LegalHelp.us. Is there a website for that?
There is.
Okay. And then what about social media? Is it all same under Legal Help?
No, it's not all, but you can reach me by email at prisonsolutions @gmail.
Okay.
Or lawsolutionsnow@gmail. So we're trying to do several things. Help people pick an attorney, help people after they've picked the attorney, to make sure that the attorneys don't ignore what they have to say. So if they can tell me what the ideas are,
right,
I can communicate that to the attorneys and make sure that they understand that while the client's thinking about their case 24/7, the lawyers are not.
Right.
Maybe the clients know a little bit more about the case than the lawyers.
Absolutely. Very important for that client-attorney privilege, to actually use it and confide in your attorney and give them the information, again, so they can help protect you with law from legal.
Well, what often happens is you hire the lawyer doesn't want to hear from you anymore, doesn't really want to see you anymore, just wants to make sure he gets paid, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to make sure that the body of information you have is constantly conveyed to the attorney. And I think my reputation in terms of my success will give me credibility, at least with the
Sure.
community to convey that.
Sure. Again, and if any potential client, if they go through you in research, who wouldn't want a person that's overzealously trying to help you protect yourself? Right. And that's basically what I'm hearing.
Right. And for the prison solutions, I think having been there for 9 3/4 years, sure, I know the system.
Right.
From all three sides, prosecution, defense, and now as an inmate.
As an inmate. Wow.
So I think I can help anybody who's going or in prison to navigate all the difficulties that they're going to face.
Man, so give it one more time. I want to make sure. I got one. There's someone that asked me about a Judge Gleason. I'm not sure what the Judge Gleason is.
Yeah.
What?
He was my judge.
That was the judge. So I don't want to touch on Judge Gleason. They have one more thing for me to ask you, which was the 5 questions, right? The 5 things you do when you first wake up to when you go to bed, like your habits. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you have them, especially once you get inside. Everyone has their routine. You had a routine, I'm sure.
When I was in prison?
Yes, but I want to talk about now, free. Do you have that same routine of what, or something, a routine that you do when you first wake up?
It's a different routine than in prison, that's for sure.
Sure.
But
yeah,
every day.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Like, is there something you do?
I wake up and I see I'm not in prison.
That's number one.
That's number one.
Got that.
And I see my wife.
Amen.
I see my wife next to me, and I see my home, and I'm feeling blessed to be there.
Yes.
To having survived that journey and having had them stay by me through the journey.
Even more importantly, man. Even more importantly.
My wife, that she kept the family together for that almost decade was unbelievable.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's a great woman. So let me ask you a question. How was dealing with prison inside? What was that life like for you? You know, as an attorney, Was you everyone's attorney inside? Because I know Dinero had a little time, and he became what was it?
Jailhouse lawyer.
Yeah,
I was a paralegal.
He was paralegal inside.
I became a paralegal.
He was getting a lot of guys off in jail.
When I got into the prison, I'm the type of guy, I'm figuring out what pays the most.
Yes.
So they was like, look, see, cutting grass was $1 a day. This was $1. So what pays the most? It was like $7.20 a day, but you only work 2 days, which was court day, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I want that job. She goes, oh, but you gotta be a paralegal. You gotta study for 6 months. I'm like, I'm good, Papa. I'm straight. So I became a paralegal, and then what I did is I started. One of the cases that I won that really made me. It was a carton of cigarettes. My retainer fee was a carton of cigarettes. Right?
That was his retainer.
Yeah. So I was also the president of the Latin community. I moved around, right? So when I had a case where the kid, the great thing about the little bit I learned about being a lawyer is you're just reciting cases from the past and you're trying to apply them to your case. So this guy gets caught up. We knew what was going on in the prison, but I get a call. Everyone's counting up, and the minute count, I gotta go to lock up and I sit down and say, "Wait, what's going on? Like, what happened?" That's what you do. So we broke it down. I said, "How far were you?" I was here. All right. So I go cite some cases, and there was like a 25-foot rule. So the inmate, if there was paraphernalia, if there was any type of drug paraphernalia, and you're the officer and you're in the room and there's only one inmate, he has to be at least 25 feet from there. If he's not, you can't charge him with it. You found it over here, he's over here. If it's not in his cell, right? So I was citing, okay, it was a 25-foot rule. So I asked, when I go back, I said, how far were you? Come on, I was in the gym. He used to fold up the chairs in the gym after a visit. And it happened that whoever would bring stuff up, they would tape it in the bottom of the chair.
Right.
Right, so he was cleaning up over here somewhere at the gym. There were still chairs that weren't folded yet, and something fell. Pop. It was just him cleaning up. The CEO was there reading the newspaper. When he seen that, he charged him. So I said, how far were you? Man, I was over there. So I knew I had the 25-foot rule. So when I already won a few cases. So they brung the head guy from Trenton up. And my first witness was the CEO. And I just set him up lovely because I knew that it was 20, he had to be between. So I said, listen, what do you think, how far you think inmate so-and-so was? Was he 50 feet or was he 75 feet? He was about 60. I said, I had to dismiss the case. I brought that case 25. So after that, I was the dude there. So, I kind of put that little.
But did you have that part or no?
No, actually, they originally sent me to a place in southwest Texas, which was in violation of Bureau of Prison rules, which say you're supposed to go within 400 miles of your home. But they claimed that they were sending me there for my own protection, so no one would know I'm an attorney. And when I got there, the first thing that the counselor who I met said to me is, we're going to let everybody know that you're here.
Why was that?
Because they
being assholes.
A big-time attorney out of New York, we're going to show you what the ropes are.
Yeah. They basically want to fuck you up.
Wow.
Did you hear what he said? He said he was supposed to be within 400.
Right. And they send him down there to say so no one. And
they say, we're going to see this or no one knows. And then as soon as they get there, yeah, we're telling everyone you're an attorney. That's like they set that up completely like to.
And when you're an attorney, particularly criminal attorney, there are various political groups within an institution, the Mexicans and others, who want you to be their guy.
Right.
When you're not really given much of a choice.
Right.
So when I got there, I found out about 2 weeks later from the head of one of the Mexican groups.
Wow.
One of your ex-clients is here. I said, I only have 2 clients in the federal prison. Everybody else is home. They said, well, he's here. I said, I don't know who it could be. They tell me who it is, and it is one of my clients.
Oh, okay.
And I find out from the client that they had him sign a waiver to be on the same prison yard as me. So when they were saying they were sending me to Texas because nobody would know me, they already knew that my client was there. But everybody would know me.
They're setting you up.
So now they threw me into the SHU, segregated housing,
right?
Isolation. because I found out that they had done this. And they now shipped me another 1,000 miles west to the Mexican border in Arizona.
Oof.
And again, you have those political issues at that institution, but the head of the blacks at the institution came to my aid because of my relationship with the people in New York.
Sure.
And
From the big homies.
And so I never had an issue out there. But people came to me. I would tell them the truth about whether they had a shot or they didn't. If I told them they didn't have a shot, they didn't accept what I had to say anyway.
Right.
And they would go to the jailhouse lawyers who would charge them a carton of cigarettes or commissary or something of that nature.
The carton of
sometimes,
cigarettes, did you
listen.
smoke?
I would go see a dude who jigs somebody up in the cafeteria and 33 people see them do it. I'm like, dog, I don't even want your cigarettes. You're gonna spend 90 days in the hole and they might ship you out. I'm just letting you know. So there were cases I wouldn't take. I'm just letting you know.
But I must tell you that there were jailhouse guys who knew the system better than I did.
Sure.
And were able to do things for guys that I just didn't know about.
But remember, I'm talking about from a peer aspect. I'm not talking about their cases back home that they're fighting or appeals.
You're talking about
I'm
inside.
talking about
No,
in
I'm
the
talking about
inside.
the same thing.
In the inside, you needed a paralegal you needed a peer to represent you. So guys inside who were beating people up, there's a courthouse inside.
For that.
Yeah, when you jig somebody up, you're not going to court outside. You're being convicted
right
there.
there.
Whether you murdered him or not, you're being convicted there for
Yeah.
it. And I was one of those guys who was obviously, I would go in. I would speak to you, and I would say, hey, I would get an idea what was going on.
Did you smoke the cigarettes?
No, because I had one of the, remember my, Don Dinero. So this is why I charge you. So I've been blessed that everywhere I go, I figure it out. So I also had one of the top commissaries. So the reason the cigarettes worked for me, because in my section, I always took care of anyone that came in, 2-for-1s. You didn't have I would find out I had a guy, a little salesman, he'd walk around. And,
Was it anyone or just Cubans?
No. Everyone knew. I was the only Cuban there. They would call me New York because I was so I would sell, the cartons worked on that flip because it was 2-for-1s.
Right.
So, you didn't have cigarettes. I give you a card. When you get your commissary, you got to give me two cigarettes, 2 boxes of cigarettes back. Or you give me a one-off, can of tuna and some soup.
Some Jack
And then I'd flip that, right? So I had the number one comment. That's how I survived. Colucci, the CEO in the front. I never had to go to the mess hall because the guys who worked there, I always had them with cigarettes. They'd bring me sandwiches. They'd bring me food. I just sat back, watched, and waited for a case to drop. Was cool with the COs, walked around when I wanted. So, I did my chill. I did my time. The paralegal shit helped. I just leave it like that.
Did you get shipped out of Arizona?
I did.
How long were you in Arizona?
I was in Arizona for about 18, 19 months.
Okay. So did you get shipped back closer to your family?
I got shipped back to Allenwood, Pennsylvania,
Oh, sure.
which is about 4 hours away from
Yeah.
home.
How much time were you in about by the time they shipped you a little closer?
Or how much time you
Was
had
it
left?
halfway through your bid?
Right. That's what I want to know. How much
I
time
was
left?
shipped back. I self-surrendered on January 8th, 2010, and I was shipped back to Allenwood in March of 2012.
Okay.
Okay, so about a couple of years, wasn't
And then I spent a couple of years there, and then went to Danbury, Connecticut.
Okay. And then you did the rest of the time.
I did the rest of the time there.
How was that in Connecticut? Was it different? Was it the same?
It was a better place. Well, one, I lived not far from there.
Because
So
I don't
got
want to
see
stop
my
you, but
family.
when I see your journey through South Texas, Arizona border, back, what it seemed you were doing in those places was checking in. You were going in, like, I'm here. You had some protection. You got checked in. Did you have to go through the same thing when you
Each
got-
time, yeah.
As I got closer to the east, it's a whole different type of person in the prisons in Allenwood than there are in South Arizona.
Sure.
Right,
So
definitely.
it was a totally different experience.
Yes, okay.
I mean, you have more New Yorkers, you had more Pennsylvanians and New Jerseyites.
Were you slicing the garlic? Is that what you're saying? You were having a little bit more pasta?
Much closer to that scenario.
Okay.
Well, that's good. But at least you're back, you're home.
Yes.
Again, let me hear this, the company that you started for the audience. I wanted to say it again.
Okay,
How they
so
can
we
find
have
you.
a website called legalhelp.us, and you can also reach me by email at prisonsolutions@gmail and or lawsolutionsnow@gmail.
All right, perfect. I want to thank you for coming. You know, that we're wrapping this one up. I think we're good. A great conversation, great interview. You know what I'm saying? This is Chris Gotti Lorenzo.
Your journey's been incredible.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we're giving the business with my partner, Don Dinero.
You already know. Giving
Robert
him the
Simels,
business.
man. Thank you for coming.